What's up guys, it's me Raza, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make a really clean and simple header that you can use on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, anything you want. But for this video I'm going to be doing it in Twitter sizes. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to make a new file and size it at 3000 by 1000. Usually Twitter only needs 1500 by 500, but I like to put it like a bit bigger because it makes it a nicer quality as long as you keep it in that same 3:1 ratio. Now first things first, I'm going to set my background to a black. I'm not going to do it to a full black, just around here maybe. And I'm going to import my logo from here. And I'm just going to set it up in the middle. I'll make it smaller, and I think something like that should be good. Now next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make my logo look 3D. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to make it a new layer, double click, color overlay, and I'm going to make it sort of like a grey mix of like a light blue, something like that I think should work. And then we'll drop it down and make it a bit smaller, just like that. And now I'm actually going to make it a bit darker. Something like, I guess this should be okay. We can always fix it later, but I think something like that should be good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to connect all the lines. You'll see what I mean. I'm just going to speed this up for you guys, and I'll be back shortly. Alright, so now that we've done with making it 3D, what we're going to do is add some simple lighting just to make it look more realistic. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to merge the two layers. Then I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm just going to grab a black brush and just sort of shade in where I think the lighting would be. So I'm going to grab my shape tool, like also my lasso tool like this, and I'm going to paint in a hardness of 0 brush, just going to paint sort of underneath. Now I actually have my thing set to the wrong type of brush, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to just paint sort of underneath like so. I'm going to make a new layer, do one of these, maybe another new layer. You can just kind of keep building the shadows on top of each other, and then what I'll do is I'll hide all of them, and I'll just go through and sort of fix the opacity a little bit, because you don't want it to be too overbearing, but we want it to be noticeable at least. Alright, that looks good. And now I'm going to go ahead and do that for all the individual parts of the logo, so I'm going to go ahead and speed this bit up for you guys as well. Alright, so now that we've done some simple shadows, I'm going to go ahead and do some simple highlights as well. So instead of a black brush, we're going to grab a white brush, and we're sort of just going to put little splodges of light sort of in between the shadows, if that makes sense. I might put one here, and then I'll just set it to overlay blending mode. And as for here, I think I'll do one like around here. I think I'll do one here, and one around there. Alright, next thing is I'm going to create a layer style for my logo at the top here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a clipping mask, and I'm going to grab a black brush, and so I'm going to click, hold shift, and just drag across the top, and I'm going to decrease the opacity slightly, just like so. And then if I double click on my layer, I'm going to bring up layer styles. In a shadow, I'm going to set it to white, blend mode normal, angle at 90 degrees, and just I think 1 or 2 should be fine. You can play around with the opacity here. I think I'm going to turn this one just down a little bit. Alright, and that looks good. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my pen tool. And I'm just going to hold shift and click. And then I'm going to just do something like this. I think that looks good. Alt and click on that point. Then right click, make a selection. And I'm gonna grab this gray from up here. And then control enter to paste it. But actually I really like that color, so I think I'm gonna try and make it look like more of a gray. Also more like a light blue, like that sort of. Right, looks good. And then I'm gonna control click on this. Raster, actually we don't need to rasterize it. Grab a black brush and just sort of paint on top. Now, I'm moving a bit quickly just for the sake of the video. So if you guys do have any questions regarding what I do, be sure to just message me on Twitter or in the comments below and I'll be able to answer all your questions. Now I don't really like this color up here anymore, so I'm going to go color overlay. I'm going to change it to something like this. And honestly, I reckon that's pretty good. I might just decrease this opacity a little, along with this one. Rasterize this layer. Decrease it a little bit. Alright, cool. Now I think that's the best I'm gonna get it, or at least just for this video. So next thing I'm gonna do is work on the shapes that I'm gonna be using. So, first thing I'm gonna do is click on the top layer and the bottom layer while holding shift, control G to make it a group, and we'll just call it something like logo. Next thing I'm gonna do is pick out the colors I'm gonna use. So, I'm gonna go into our color picker. I think I'm gonna use like a nice sort of pink, something like here maybe. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, I don't mind that. Maybe a purple. Something like this. Sure, maybe like a nice light blue as well. Something like this. Sure. Actually, I really like the pink. Maybe I'll do something a bit lighter. It's fine. We can work with it later. So first thing I'm going to do, create a new layer and put this one to the top and just like, we'll set it to red so we know that it's our color layer. Then we're going to start with our shapes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a shape. Probably something like this maybe. And we'll set it to the pink color. Then what I'm going to do is create a new layer on top of that and set it to a clipping mask. Click just at the tip of the point there and then go down the middle like this. Then fill it in. Then with a black brush and a white brush, I'm gonna grab my brush tool. Gonna click once at the bottom with the black brush, once at the top with the white brush. Then I'm gonna press Control I to invert it. And then at the bottom, I'm gonna click once with the white brush and once with the black brush at the top. And then set the blending mode to overlay or soft light, whichever looks better. I think I'm just gonna do overlay for now. Cool. And then with our tool, I might just go ahead and add an inner shadow as well. Set that to overlay, and I think I'll make it around 3 pixels, looks alright. And I'm just gonna go around adding a few of these different sort of shapes with different colors. Feel free to use any colors you want. I'm just using these because they sort of fit with my branding a little bit. But yeah, I'll be back shortly. Alright, so now that I'm done with the colored shapes, we're gonna go around now and do some more like darker shapes just to fill in the gaps around it, if that makes sense. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab like a lighter gray. Now in order to do this, I was actually mistaken at the start. We do actually want to make the background color like a full black. Then just above the background layer, I'm gonna grab sort of like a darker gray. And then I'm just gonna like go around sort of the outside of all these shapes, creating new ones as I go. So first thing I'm gonna do is, for instance, we're gonna go here, gonna go up here, and then I'm just gonna do something like this, and then we'll make a new layer. And to do this, we want to try and maintain the distance around all the shapes that are similar. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but you'll know what I mean when you see it. So we're just gonna go around sort of creating new shapes. Here I might do something like this. And do this pretty much until you fill in the entire screen. Now, the most important thing is going to make sure all the layers are in different shapes. Now quickly I'm going to make this a group and call this colored shapes. So yeah, I'll be back with you shortly. Alright, so now that we've basically done and gone every shape, we're going to do some similar shadows to what we did with the these colored shapes. So just for an example, I'm going to grab this first shape. We're going to make a line down the middle. Going to grab a black and a white. And we're just gonna black at the top, black at the bottom, white at the top. Control I, black at the top, white at the bottom. Set it to overlay, and then play with the opacity a little bit. Now, what we're gonna do a little bit differently with these ones is, first of all, we're gonna add an inner shadow. Now we're actually going to set this one to normal and just make it sort of like a grayish color. But what we're going to do now is we're going to create sort of like little lines going inside of them. So I'm going to make a shape similar to this real quick. And then with a white brush, on a new layer of course, I'm just going to do something like this. Then we're going to grab our layer mask and just slowly erase the top so it makes it look more like one solid line. And then we're going to set it to overlay or soft. I think soft light looks better. Actually maybe we won't do that, but if you want to, you're more than welcome to. So I'm going to quickly go ahead and finish these rest of these shapes, and I'll be back with you soon. Alright, cool. So now that we've finished with the shapes, I'm going to put them all on the layer and we can call it dark shapes. And I think what I want to do is, I'm not really happy with the colors, like not the color bits but the darker bits. They just feel too grey and I'd rather them feel a bit more sort of bluish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a color balance and just increase the cyans a tad. Maybe the blues a little bit. Nothing too drastic or else it'll look unrealistic, but just a little bit like so. I think that works. And now what I'm going to do is create a layer above my colored shapes and just add some glow to them. So I'm going to grab this pink. First we'll click on the darker color and we'll just do something like that. And then a new layer. Hide this. I'm going to grab the lighter color. And then I'm going to do something like this. And I might set it to something like, I think screen looks good. And then I'll grab a white and set it to soft light. And now basically I'm just going to go ahead and do that to all over the colored shapes, just to add a bit of lighting. So once again, I'll be back with you guys very soon. Alright, so now that we're finished with the lighting for the most part, I think what I'm going to do is we're going to put them all in one group and we'll call them lighting. And then we're just going to add the few final touches. So I'm going to double click on our little logo group, scroll down and click on drop shadow. And I think I'm going to add a slight drop shadow, maybe around 20 size and 15 or so distance, and then we're going to decrease the opacity. Then I'm going to go to the top, create a new layer, go on dark, and I'll create a little vignette just by having a dark brush and going around the corners, just painting, and I'm going to put it on overlay, decrease the opacity. I'm going to create another layer with a smaller brush. We're just going to essentially do the same thing as so. And now we're going to add some very simple text. So what I'm going to do is with a rectangle, I'll set it to black. I'm going to just create a rectangle and I'm going to grab my ruler, set it to the middle, just so I can line this up. And I think I'm just going to decrease the opacity the tiniest amount, so maybe around 85 should be okay, or maybe even less, maybe around 80. And then I'm going to just do some simple text. Maybe I'll just write my name, make sure that the color is in white. And then I'll choose a really simple font, so something like Helvetica should work perfectly for this. If my fonts want to load, perfect. I think this should be good. I'm going to click on advanced and make it italic. And then I actually might increase the width a bit more. Maybe make it like that. Cool. Just going to center the text. Alright, I think that looks good. And then I'm going to duplicate the rectangle, set the opacity to 100. And I'm going to drag it below the current logo, or the current rectangle, sorry, and decrease the height. Then I'm going to double click. And I'm just going to create a really simple gradient, set it to normal, and I think I'm going to go from purple to blue to pink, something like this should be okay. I think I'm just going to decrease the height a little bit more, and then just make sure it's in line with the bottom of the rectangle. Then that looks good. Oop, maybe just a little bit smaller. And that should be good. And then I'm gonna make this a group, we'll call it text1. Then I'm just gonna duplicate it, move it to the other side, and we'll just write something like graphic designer. Alright, perfect. Let's quickly make sure that it's the same distance apart. So what I'm going to do is grab this text and move it until it hits the edge of the logo. So I think that's around 276 pixels. So what I'm going to do is grab this second box, put it to the edge of the logo, and move it 276 pixels across. There we go. Now, last thing I'm going to do before I'm done is I'm going to take everything and put it in a group, duplicate the group, convert it to a smart object. I'm going to go filter, sharpen, then I'm going to press Control Shift and A on my keyboard to bring up the camera raw filter. And I think I'm going to increase the contrast and the highlights while decreasing the shadows, increase the whites, etc. Texture up, clarity up, dehaze I'm going to bring up a little bit, vibrance I'm going to bring quite a bit up, and saturation just a tiny bit. And there we go. Then if I want to save it, I'll press Control Shift Alt and S on my keyboard to bring up the save for web function, and I'm just going to save it as a PNG or a JPEG, whichever you want. Now, thanks for watching the video. If you guys did enjoy, please be sure to like, subscribe, and comment any video ideas down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.